In the dead of winter, 1692, a strange sickness fell upon the small, devout village of Salem, Massachusetts. It wasn't a cough or a fever. It was a creeping dread, a chilling malady of the mind that began in the home of Reverend Samuel Parris. His 9-year-old daughter, Betty, and his 11-year-old niece, Abigail Williams, started having bizarre fits. They would scream, throw things, contort their bodies into impossible shapes, and complain of being pricked by invisible pins. The local doctor, William Griggs, was baffled. After ruling out every known illness, he gave a diagnosis that would ignite a firestorm. The girls were under an evil hand. They were bewitched. The village, already on edge from recent smallpox outbreaks, fears of attacks from neighboring tribes, and a deep-seated belief in the devil's work, latched on to this explanation. The girls, pressured to name their tormentors, pointed their trembling fingers at 3 women on the fringes of society: Tituba, Reverend Parris's Caribbean slave; Sarah Good, a homeless beggar; and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman embroiled in property disputes. These were easy targets, women without power or allies. They were arrested and brought before the magistrates. At first, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne fiercely proclaimed their innocence. But Tituba, perhaps seeing a way to save herself or simply overwhelmed by the relentless questioning, confessed. And what a confession it was. She spun a vivid tale of signing the devil's book, of flying on a broomstick, of a coven of witches meeting in the forest to plot the destruction of the Puritans. She named Good and Osborne as her accomplices and hinted at others, a shadowy network of evil lurking within the pious community. Tituba's confession was like throwing gasoline on a fire. It validated everyone's worst fears. If there were 3 witches, how many more were there? The panic began to spiral. The afflicted girls, now joined by others like the cunning Ann Putnam Jr., became local celebrities. They writhed and shrieked in the courtroom, claiming to see the specters of the accused tormenting them. Their spectral evidence, the unseen spirits they claimed to witness, was accepted as undeniable proof. The accused had no defense. How can you disprove a ghost only your accuser can see? To deny the accusations was to be found guilty. The only way out was to confess, repent, and name other witches. A dark and twisted logic took hold. The innocent who maintained their integrity were condemned, while those who lied and accused others were spared. The accusations spread like a contagion, moving from the outcasts to respected members of the community. Martha Corey, a devout churchgoer who had openly criticized the trials, was accused. She was shocked. "I am an innocent person," she declared, but her skepticism was twisted into proof of her guilt. Then came Rebecca Nurse, a frail 71-year-old grandmother known for her piety and kindness. The entire community was stunned. Dozens signed a petition attesting to her good character. The jury initially found her not guilty, but the judges and the courtroom crowd, whipped into a frenzy by the afflicted girls, pressured them to reconsider. They changed their verdict. Rebecca Nurse was condemned to hang. The first execution took place on June 10th. Bridget Bishop, a tavern owner with a reputation for being unconventional, was hanged on what would become known as Gallows Hill. Her death didn't quell the hysteria, it emboldened it. Throughout the summer, the hangman was kept busy. 5 were hanged in July, another 5 in August, and 8 more in September. One of the most harrowing stories is that of Giles Corey, Martha Corey's 80-year-old husband. A stubborn and formidable man, he refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. He knew the court was a sham and refused to dignify it. By refusing to plead, he also ensured his property wouldn't be confiscated, preserving it for his sons. The punishment for refusing to plead was horrific: peine forte et dure, or pressing. He was stripped, a heavy board was laid on his chest, and one by one, heavy stones were piled on top. For 2 days he endured the agony. His last words, when the sheriff demanded he plead, were a defiant gasp: "More weight." He was crushed to death, a martyr to his own integrity. As the leaves began to turn in the autumn of 1692, the public's appetite for the trials began to wane. The accusations were becoming more and more outlandish, even targeting the wife of Governor William Phips. Influential ministers like Increase Mather began to publicly question the use of spectral evidence, arguing it was better that 10 suspected witches escape than one innocent person be condemned. Governor Phipps finally stepped in. He ordered a halt to the proceedings and established a new superior court that disallowed spectral evidence. The remaining prisoners were slowly released. The Salem Witch Trials were over. At the end, over 200 people had been accused. 30 were found guilty and 19 were hanged. At least 5 others, including Giles Corey, died in prison. It was a dark, shameful chapter in American history. Years later, many of the accusers and magistrates issued public apologies. Ann Putnam, Jr., one of the most prolific accusers, stood before her church and asked for forgiveness, blaming her actions on a great delusion of Satan. In 1711, the colony passed a bill restoring the good names of the condemned and providing financial restitution to their families. So what caused this mass hysteria? Historians point to a perfect storm of factors: deep-seated religious fanaticism, social tensions between the established Salem town and the poorer Salem village, anxieties about the untamed wilderness, and even, some have argued, a possible fungus on their rye crop that could have caused hallucinogenic effects. But at its heart, the Salem Witch Trials are a chilling cautionary tale about the dangers of fear, bigotry, and the failure of critical thinking. It's a story of what happens when a community turns on itself, when accusations replace evidence, and when belief becomes more powerful than truth. It reminds us that the seeds of hysteria, once planted, can grow into a forest of tragedy. A lesson as relevant today as it was over 300 years ago. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating and important as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the most compelling moments of our past. See you next time.